And Courtney and Philip, our two presenters for today, you're both on and all ready to?
Yes.
Perfect. So we are coming up to a couple of minutes past. There is just one announcement I want to go through before we get started, so I might make that quickly now while the last few people roll in so that Courtney and Philip have all of the time for the meeting to share. So the only thing I wanted to mention is that we are really keen to be finding a new meeting time for this Biocurator working group call. So at the moment, both of the 2 calls that we have per month are held at midday Eastern time, which is fine for those of us in the US, is a little bit less friendly for those outside of the US. And so we really want to be able to find a time to move one of these 2 meetings to that's friendlier for the global ClinGen community to be able to attend live. Meetings are recorded, it's up online, but it's not quite the same as being able to attend these live and ask questions. So there is a doodle poll at the moment that's out for that. We'll put the link for that in the chat as well. If you've not filled that in yet, please do, and that will be open until the end of the month. Thank you, Amanda. So with that, unless there's any pressing announcements from anyone else on the call, I will hand over now to our presenters for today. So today we have Courtney Thaxton and Philip Weller. Both Courtney and Philip are ClinGen staff members at UNC and at Geisinger respectively, and are going to be sharing with us today actually quite exciting updates to the way that gene curation information is displayed to the public on the ClinGen website. So like I said, if there's not pressing announcements from anyone, I don't think that there is anything, but give people a couple of seconds just to make sure. And if not, I'll hand over to Courtney. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Alicia. I do have a few announcements and Phil will jump in, so it gives people a little bit more time. I just wanted to make you aware of some of the things going on in ClinGen right now, just overall. We have annual updates. We have them every year across our expert panels, and we really want to know how these groups are progressing in their curations. Most of the time, it's going to be a coordinator or chair that fills these out. However, as biocurators, you are members of this group. So we just wanted to let you know about some changes that have happened that you can do to help out your coordinators and your chairs. So for instance, we have now updated the GPM, our group and personnel management system that houses your profile as a ClinGen member to indicate credentials in a structured form. That's up here in the right-hand corner. We have a little bit of a detail about what a credential is, but basically we just want to know what your degrees are or if you have any other certifications. It is a drop-down list, so you can do multiple choice from those. And if for any reason we don't have yours listed there, you can create one. Just make sure that it is the right acronym, spelled correctly, etc. on there, because other people may be able to use that. Another thing that we have updated is the expertise section. We've really wanted to make this structure just to really help for everyone to review exactly what your expertise is in. And so you'll have a drop-down menu, much like you see on this lower corner, to indicate what you are. Now, there is an option of none. You are welcome to use it. You will not be looked poorly upon. If you are a new person, and we realize we have even undergraduates, postdocs, fellows, it's okay to say at this point that you don't have any expertise if it doesn't fit within one of these categories you have. You will not be looked upon poorly. So I just want to add that there. We hope with the efforts you're doing with ClinGen, you gain expertise. That's the whole point, and we're happy to have you participating in ClinGen. Another thing is you would be sent out an email if you are up for your annual renewal of your COI or conflict of interest. You would get an email from the GPM. Please check your junk spam folder for that. Going on to the COI, we did update it this past fall to a new version where we are not only taking COI for expert panels, but all of our working groups across ClinGen. What you will notice is that you would get that automated email, as I said. You always want to check those junk spam and quarantine folders. And there are quick links on your GPM dashboard when you log in. Other key things to remember if you're not accessing it, if you're signed into an institutional VPN, you may need to sign off. That will block some people's access. But what's the important thing to remember is if you are on multiple groups, you will be asked to take a COI for each of those groups. You do want to disclose any published or in progress work as it relates to the EP. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't contribute, but it's a way for your coordinators and expert panels to keep track of whether there's a conflict of interest and where you may need to recuse yourself from any type of voting and or curations. Those responses are going to be publicly available on the ClinGen website. So we just want to be very clear we're being transparent to everyone. And while they are required on an annual basis, if you have a conflict that arises all of a sudden, you should update your COI, and you can do that anytime. Go into that GPM, go to your COI list tab, and then say you want to update and click that button. What you'll see on the right-hand side is the new version 2 of that conflict of interest. The language has evolved a little bit, and it will pre-fill some of those answers compared to what you have done before, but obviously you can change those. The two things I want to bring to your attention is we've also brought in 2 attestations. This is really dependent on that you have read this information, understand, and will comply to it, as well as our data policy and sharing. So that first attestation here says that you will inform your group leadership about your pre-existing activities and initiatives if planned and publications are involved with curation. So really just pay attention to this and make sure you are letting your coordinators or chairs know. The other one may not apply to all groups, but it certainly can apply to many. An example is a variant curation expert panel, but it means that if you are having any data shared specifically for the efforts of your ClinGen VSEP, now this might be that you are being shared clinical information about patients with variants in a specific gene that's part of your VSEP's effort, that you will not use that information for anything outside of that ClinGen expert panel. This is considered a confidential use and information, and you would have to ask the membership and the people who are actually sharing it whether you can use it outside of ClinGen. So please just make sure you're acknowledging both of these types of attestations and informing the correct people before moving on to share any of that data. Those are it for my updates, and I will take it over to Phil.
Thank you, Courtney. Let me share this screen here. Can everybody see the screen? I'm always paranoid about getting halfway through to find out that I didn't share the right screen.
I can see it. Looks good to me.
Okay, in this presentation, we'll be covering the new gene disease validity detail page on the Clinical Genome website, in particular, its inclusion of evidence details. This feature was introduced in January as a beta review. While it's somewhat unusual for us to introduce features to the public as beta, in this case, the sheer amount of additional information and the challenges in presenting it just warranted such an approach. How long this feature remains in beta will depend on what additional feedback we get, but for now the beta will continue throughout this month. So this will be a live demonstration, but in the interest of covering all the material, and because this will be recorded as a potential tutorial, I ask that you place any questions in chat or hold until the end. So before looking at the new pages, I want to talk a bit about some of the very old curations we have that cannot display any additional evidence data simply because they were curated prior to the current curation system. So such an example is SMAD3, and we'll look at that now. So this curation was done under the old Gene Curation Express system. As you can see, the display is unchanged from the previous release, with one example noting that additional evidence details are not available. There are roughly 80 of these curations that cannot currently display additional evidence details, and there's another roughly 36 curations that while they are in a GCI, there are some 8 updates that need to happen to them before evidence details can be accurately displayed. Over time, as these are all recreated, the details will automatically appear. Just as a reminder, though, if you happen to be the one recurating a gene curation express gene, don't forget to submit via the ECT Google site link for the removal of the old record. Otherwise, you'll end up with 2 entries where you really only wanted 1. Now for the, I guess, just under 2,000 curations we have. We are pleased to present this new feature. Let's look at RPE 65. So as you can see, this page has additional information in the form of tabs next to the original summary tab. Also present is an announcement box and the evidence feedback button. As part of the beta program, we highly encourage you to provide feedback if you encounter anything at all that's questionable about the new content or would like to see any changes or additions to either content or functionality. To send feedback, merely click on the evidence feedback button like that. You'll be asked to complete the form, all of the form fields before submitting, including information about yourself, along with the feedback you're providing. The information about yourself is really only in case we need to contact you for additional clarification or input. It is not retained at all outside of the email that this form will send. So actually, I'll quick go through here and send something myself. And that lapping sound you hear in the background is a cat finishing off my soup that I guess I will not be finishing up after this call. So you definitely have to include at least 1 category, but you can also include others. And I don't really have anything important to say, so I'm just going to throw some blahs in here. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so back to the page. The new tab groups for the evidence data is broken out into specific categories of genetic evidence, experimental evidence, non-scorable evidence, and references. The lumping and the splitting data is reproduced here for your convenience. For those of you who use the lumping or splitting or who are interested, it's been available off of the gene page for some time now, and it's still available there, but we produced it here again for your convenience. Also for you, for those of you who are familiar with the GCI, you'll recognize that the other tabs are similar to the evidence breakout on the GCI's evidence summary page. So on the genetic evidence and the experimental evidence tabs, you'll see, in most cases, you'll find an indicator of the total capped points calculated per the SOP that this particular gene disease was curated under. This one is a good example. And we'll see in a second, the total calculated points is much higher than 12, but in accordance with the SOP, the score is capped at 12. The asterisk here tells us that that the score has been capped. If the total counted points were exactly 12 or less, you would see no asterisk. You can see that in the experimental evidence area where the total counted points is 6, which is exactly equal to the experimental evidence cap. Since there was no reason to cap it above that, there is no asterisk here. Okay, I'm sorry, I need to bring up one other screen here before I can quick flip over. And I need to move the Zoom control out of the way. Okay, so starting with the genetic evidence tab, it's further broken down into case level variance, case level segregation, case level family segregation without a scored program, and case control. Although this particular curation does have information related to all four, that's not always going to be the case. So let me quickly jump over to the curation for the gene PLN. And you can see that the case level family segregation does not have a little check mark prefix. It has an X, and if you try to mouse over it, it's disabled. It won't let you select it. So this tells you that there is no evidence data applicable to this category. But in the other cases where you have the check mark and you can mouse over, that tells you that there is data within there. So back to RPE 65. So evidence data is presented in the same table structure we've used throughout the website. So searching and sorting functionality should already be familiar to you. Like the other tables, we can search the entire table by simply entering data into the search box, and you can see it's picking up all the GU prefixes here and anywhere else that it happens to be. We can also resort any of the columns. And we can also horizontally scroll. So this is pretty important because these are really wide tables. So depending on the size of your screen or the size of your browser window, scrolling will be necessary. Sort of a nuance of the software that we use to build these tables tries to put the columns on a nice boundary. So it may not be obvious that there is data on the other side of there unless you actually try to scroll and look at it. And you can see we try to make this apparent to everybody. So if you happen to forget, just look for the little red warning up at the top there. You can also use the scroll bar, or the toolbar to do various functions. You can use the full screen button here to make the table full screen. And that's really useful if you want to take screenshots and you don't care about all the other stuff. You just want the data that's on there. You can use the hide and choose column selector to knock specific columns out. So if you want to get everything back on a page and you don't really care about various items, you can simply do that to toggle columns on and off. You can use the active column search to actually search for within just a column. Probably not the best one to use there, but I didn't think of doing one ahead of time. So, but you can see it did reduce down to 3 there. You can also export the data of the displayed rows out into various formats. As you can see, the listing of all the formats there. In this particular table, well, let me rephrase that. With these new evidence tables, we're also introducing a new tool. This tool is not currently available in other parts of the website and other tables, but we are planning on making that available then. But this is a tool that's known as multi-sorting, and it's clickable by, or it's accessible by clicking the multi-sorting toolbar button. We recognize that many people might want to search by, for example, PMID first, and then by points, and then by some other secondary attribute. Perhaps even, multiple attributes. So multi-sorting allows you to basically add as many cascaded sort attributes as you want. Once you have the form brought up, you can simply change this to whatever you want. Once you want to, let me do a refresh on the screen here. There we go. Apologize for that. So once you have your first attribute set up, you can keep adding other ones as you see fit. So here we're going to, we'll do the label. And the next one we'll do is program counted points, and we'll do that one in descending order. There we go. Once you have that all set up, you just click on the sort, and it'll rearrange everything accordingly for you. If you want to delete an item, you can delete, but it's only ever going to delete the last item. So if you actually wanted to keep program counted points, you could delete down to 2, but then you'd have to go and change this one to program counted points. Okay, so wherever possible, we're also providing shortcuts to reference data that might be beneficial. For example, here you'll see links over to the allele registry and also links to the respective PubMed document. For your convenience, these will always open up in a separate tab, so we don't force you to keep doing the back button to get where you want it to go. It also means that you can do multiples here and see whatever you might want to see. In cases where the allele registry has not been provided by the curator, you can also see that if I scroll down a little bit here, there's an example where they provided the ClinVar ID, and we'll also link over to ClinVar and show the respective page. Okay. So case level segregation, family level, or case level family segregation and case control all behaves in similar functionality to what we just reviewed, with different and relevant content, of course. A special note in the case level segregation and the family segregation, we presented total LOD score and total counted scores across both segregation tabs. This is because the score calculations are not typically separated out between those two categories, but apply to the summation of both. So you can see over here we have that, and if you go over to this, you'll see that they're identical here. One thing you may have noticed as I bounced around here is that each section seems to have its own color. There's no special meaning attached to any color. It's really just kind of a visual feedback mechanism, a means for you to visually separate out the different sections and kind of making it easier over time as you use the feature more and more to recognize where you are as you traverse through the various tabs. Oops, I skipped over that one. Okay, so the experimental evidence section lists all the experimental evidence considered. Once again, it's a table. The table features and functionality of the listing is same as the others. Of course, the content is different, but all the functionality is the same as what we went through for the first one. So you can. You just want to see what the biochemical function B's or A's are, you can just quickly type that in and go over there without having to open up a column sort and traverse through there. The non-scorable evidence is a simple list of evidence that is not scored. It is pre-sorted in order of ascending PMID, and thus will roughly correlate to the ascending date. It is not currently, we do not currently provide different sort or actions. It is possible that may be a feature provided in the future to allow you to maybe sort by author and a couple other things, but that's not currently provided at this time. Similarly, the reference list is again a list of all of the PMIDs referenced throughout the evidence detail, again sorted in ascending PMID, which roughly correlates to date. So that is the complete demonstration for these new features and what to find inside of them. We hope that you will find this evidence detail useful in your research. Again, we really encourage you to provide feedback, not just for any issues you might encounter, but also for any suggestions to continuously improve the content and the display, both for your convenience and benefit. We really want to make this feature successful. We want to move it out of beta as quick as we can. But more importantly, we realize that there's an incredible amount of new information here, and there might be some helpful ideas that you have on presenting them that would make your endeavors a lot easier, and we absolutely want to hear that and be able to implement that. So before moving to any questions, I do want to share a couple things that we have planned for this feature in the coming months. As I mentioned, we do have the quick links for the PMIDs and for the allele registry, but you'll notice that any place in here where a PMID might be referenced, like right there, we're not actually building a link. So in what we call the free text fields, we're not recognizing the PMIDs there. In a future release, we're going to be scanning through them and recognizing them and providing equal, fast links. Similar with the HP terms, we want to be able to provide fast links over to the JAX.org page. So if you have any questions, especially since we tend to use the common terms on some of these, if you have any questions, you can just quick check the page and verify that yes, that was the HP that or the term that you were expecting. Let's see, we also want to be able to give you the ability of changing the column width on your own. So again, this is a convenience for if you want to take screenshots to include in publications. Sometimes the system doesn't automatically use the best algorithms to determine what areas you really want to expand and what you don't. The problem with this right now is this does have some conflicts with the ability, as you can see here, of holding the header in place. So we're working through those issues and hoping to be able to roll that feature out later this year. And of course, anything that you submit via the feedback for suggestions will go on to our to-do list right away. So now I think we can open the floor to any questions or comments. I'll attempt to field any screen function or navigation questions, and I will defer to Courtney on any content questions.
We do have one question, Phil, in the chat from Deb, specifically on case controls, whether or not the ability to get the detailed information and summary of the cohorts could be included. The preview evidence page may be not giving as much detail in the case controls. So this could be ages or populations, etc.
So I don't know if I can fully answer that. You're basically saying that there's additional data here that we would like to see on case control.
Yeah.
So what I'll have to do is we'll have to work with the GCI folks to see if that data is available. I don't recall seeing that one on the summary page up on the GCI either.
Yeah, just to add so everyone understands the background, the beginning parts of this data really came from the evidence summaries that you all can click within the GCI for each of your curations. And so that has been a tailored set of pieces of information that might not even be the full data you're adding in the GCI. And that's what Phil's pulling this information from. So certainly if you all would find this useful, we can go back and make sure that we're getting that data in stream, and that can effectively let Phil be able to populate some more rows and information in the future.
Great.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Deb, if since unfortunately as soon as this Zoom ends, we'll lose that comment. If you could actually add that in through a feedback.
I did. I think
great.
that was the message sound we heard. So
Okay,
I added it. I
excellent.
used the evidence feedback form and put that in. So it's just when you go in the GCI and you can like click on to view the case and the case controls, that entry page. If you click on that to view it, you'll see all the additional information. And RecQL is one that I've done recently that had a lot of information filled out on the case control pages. So that might be a good example to look at for any kind of development of adding in this additional information. Can't really, I mean, this gives you a summary, but if you really want to use this data, you're going to need more information on the case controls.
Okay, that's great feedback. Thank you. We will definitely look into that, and we will keep you informed.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
And some things just to add in for everyone. Obviously, with this full data here, there's a lot to read, which is great, but it also means that there could be spelling mistakes that are showing up, or the unfortunate autocorrection that happens with your computers. It's one thing to just ask you all to keep in mind as you are filling out these areas. In the GCI, it doesn't necessarily have a spell correct or right to point out if there's been an auto correction necessarily. And that might be within your computer system as well, and how you have those added in for your resources. So please just double check if you have any of those as you're reviewing the information here with your groups. Certainly, if you find a misspelling or anything, you can always go back into the gene curation interface and make those changes and updates, and then republish to the website. So Deb has a question, Phil, a general one, on how would you search the website for all the refuted genes that we have? And it says genes with case control data, possibly. It's not related to this feature, but still a search question.
Yeah, so we have not currently rolled out the full advanced search capabilities that we have been working on, which allows you to really traverse through what are typically standalone parts of the website. So, for example, if you wanted to know all of the refuted genes, you would go to the listing page and then sort by that. But if you wanted to mix that together with show me all the refuted genes that had case control data, we currently do not have that functionality, but we recognize that as we add more information on the system, that it's absolutely going to be necessary to start linking together not only parts from various screens, but also across various activities. So you can, basically generate the pages and reports that really drill down to what you're trying to do and help you with your research. So that capability is coming, but it's not available yet.
Yeah, you can search at least though for all refuted or by the classifications, which I think you're going to now, right, Phil?
Oh, that'd be great to see. I've been looking around for it. I couldn't figure that out. So what did you do?
So he first went to the gene disease validity drop down,
Right.
and you go to all curations. You can also search by an expert panel alone if you do the second one. Either one, it will give you either every gene curation or only for the EP. And then Phil touched that little magnifying glass button. So that opened up all these cells underneath each of those columns, and that allows you to sort. So you can sort by your gene, all the diseases, classification, etc.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And if you want to download those, then you can push the little arrow button going to the side, and you can pick, similarly like with the full gene curation data, just extracting out the data you have here for refuted.
Great.
So,
Right, and these cascade. So you can see I further drilled down and refuted, and then I further refined it by saying, well, I just really went for the epilepsy expert panel, and that reduced the list even more.
So I do see there's another question more separate to the GCI. It was like asking if they add a paper to the GCI and decide not to use it, they don't know how to delete it and can that feature be added. We can certainly take that back to the GCI. What you can do is actually delete the information. So if you add in a PMID and you start to go, okay, there's experimental evidence, you can remove the experimental evidence. It will still have a PMID just sitting in there. You can even make a remark to say, I need, this is non-scorable. And you can say it's not scorable because it doesn't meet the group's classifications. So it at least show that, well, you looked at this PMID, but it's not actually being used towards the score or final classification. So that's one possibility you can use, but we can certainly look into being able to remove a PMID, especially if it happened to be a typo for your PMID and it's something totally different than what you wanted.
Yeah, for the list of PMIDs that we get for the view that you just showed, Phil, any PMID that we have in the GCI will be shown on that, or only PMIDs that we used, that we curated data with, would be shown? Like, so basically, is that PMID list generated from the preview evidence summary page only? And then if you put in a PMID, it wouldn't be there anyway if you didn't curate data on it.
Yeah,
So
I think given the fact it comes from that evidence summary data, right, Phil, it would be the PMIDs that were scored for the data, not unscored data. You may know better.
I believe it's a list of everything, including unscored. I have not, I'll be honest, I have not gone through myself to verify that, for example, if I look at, well, that was a bad choice, wasn't it? So if I go here, I see that 941 is present. And if I go into here, 941 is also present. Now, I haven't verified that that has actually been used in it might have been referenced somewhere in the experimental or the genetic evidence also, although I don't know why it would be non-scorable then. So I believe it is a total list of all. I can reach out to Gloria and the GCI folks and verify that when they send that list over, that's how it's being presented. What we can, if that is the case, and I have to agree that there probably would want to be a list of everything, whether it was scored or not, but you probably also want to look at this list and say, was it scored or not? So what I'd like to do is add to our to-do list. Maybe we'll put an indicator on there saying that this was used as scored, or not scored. But if you happen to be looking at a new gene disease curation, and you say, gee, I just read this paper yesterday by somebody, and I wonder if they considered this here, I still want to give you an ability to go to a comprehensive list, and you can quickly say, yes or no, that they looked at that, and then you can determine whether you want to notify the appropriate expert panel.
And that's exactly why we put in the ability in the GCI that not scorable evidence, right? Is that there may be something within that paper that made you think it would be appropriate for the curation. And so many times we will get responses from individuals using this going, how come you didn't add this paper? How come you didn't add that? And so it's good for us to be able to show, well, we did consider it and it just did not fit within our framework, maybe because they did what they called an introgenic deletion. And when you looked it up, there's 3 other genes included. Well, that person doesn't get scored, but you want to say, I've looked at it and assessed it. So think about that too. You can add those papers into the PMID and indicate not scorable. That can be really useful information for users of this data.
That was good feedback. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? And if not, we can leave that there for today. So a huge thank you to Courtney and Philip for that presentation. Particularly congratulations to Philip for doing a live demo that went off without a hitch. But thank you for that. That was really informative. I guess one final thing before we come up, Philip, can you please just reconfirm for everyone exactly where they should be heading if they want to be giving feedback about this new feature? So not necessarily that they have a problem with the evidence that's displayed or something for the curation, but if they have feedback of, I don't like how this feature works, where should people be going for that? We still have.
I think those are there.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, so right here is a feedback button that is totally specific to gene disease validity details. So clicking on that will send to a slightly different group of folks than the normal website feedback button, and that's appropriate because quite frankly, with the generic feedback button, we get a fair, we get some spam messages that I don't think any of you all want to see, unless somebody is really interested in a timeshare in some country that doesn't exist. But this stuff will go to a list of curators and developers, so we'll be able to see this right away and attack it right away also.
I'm one of them that
once
gets
we
the
go-
email. So,
Once we go full production and the beta is removed, and of course this box is removed, then we'll defer back to the normal send feedback for future. But for now, we kind of want to be very cognizant and very responsive for any feedback because we do want to move this out of beta and into full production as quick as possible. So stick with the evidence feedback button here. And also, I do, since I didn't do a slide presentation, and I should have at least created one slide at the end. So that was a bad on me, but even though Courtney and I was on this call, I definitely want to, give accolades and a big round of applause to Terry O'Neill over at the Broad Institute, Tristan Nelson, also at Geisinger, and Gloria, who's with the GCI. Without their help, almost every single day and assistance, none of this would have got done.
very thankful.
So yeah, huge thank you there, and huge thank you to the team behind it, and hope everyone on this call and all the people that you work with start testing out this feature, and definitely looking forward to your feedback on it, as Phil said, so we can move out of that beta mode. Just finally, before everyone signs off, a reminder again to please fill out that doodle poll as we try to reschedule one of these meetings. Hopefully for people like Philip, if we can move away from a lunchtime meeting, then he won't have to miss out on eating the rest of his lunch again because it's been stolen by a pet. So yeah, we would like to move. So one will stay at this lunchtime setting, but yeah, we would like to move one either early or later in the day. But thank you everyone so much, and we can all have 15 minutes back to our day.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.